So here's the reality on using the M3 MacBook Air. I've been using it since its launch, and here's the thing. The M3 MacBook Air will cost you $1,099, and the bad thing about buying the baseline MacBook Air is that it will only give you 256 gigabytes, which is not enough for most people. And then if you want to upgrade your storage, that's $200 more. And then with that price, you can pretty much get a MacBook Pro. I'll tell you at the end if buying the MacBook Air is the right choice. Before, we've got a lot to talk about. Apple Silicon is by far the best thing that could have ever happened to the Mac. When Apple introduced the M1 chip on the MacBook Air, it caught the world on surprise on its snappiness, on its optimization for battery, and Apple has kept evolving Apple Silicon, their chips, from the M1, the M2, and now with the M3 MacBook Air. And you feel the M3, especially coming from an M1 chip. Everything feels snappy, the laptop behaves extremely fast, and it doesn't matter if you're editing video, editing photography, or writing your final essay as a student, it will handle it perfectly fine. The design of the M3 MacBook Air is absolutely stunning. It hasn't changed from the M2 chip. Something that has changed though is within the midnight color, because it now has a new anodization process for that midnight color, which helps reduce fingerprints. I mean, the M2 midnight MacBook Air was a nightmare. It was a design that was beautiful, but there were so many fingerprints that you basically didn't see the beautiful of it anymore because it was basically a fingerprint magnet. Now, the reality of this new anodization process is that yes, it does prevent fingerprints. Yes, you don't see them every single day. It's not a fingerprint magnet anymore, which is amazing. It does work really well, but it's obviously not anti-fingerprint. You still do get fingerprints. I've had a lot of questions about this. Yes, the M3 MacBook Air in midnight still collects fingerprints, but definitely not as much as before. I mean, massive progress from Apple, but yeah, there's still way more to go. You can now also connect two displays to this new MacBook Air, which I haven't tried because I don't use two displays. I don't use two monitors on my MacBook Air. But if you do, keep in mind that your MacBook has to be shut in order for it to work. I don't understand why. As soon as you open the MacBook, one of the monitors will actually turn off, which is kind of weird. So Apple sent me the 15-inch MacBook Air. It comes in 13 inches and 15 inches. And I gotta say, I'm always a 13-inch MacBook user. I love it because of its portability. If I want to use it on an airplane, you can actually use it. But I gotta say, it's also a pretty heavy MacBook if we're talking about the Pro. But the 15-inch MacBook Air, and specifically with this new design and everything, I gotta say it is a really good recommendation because it is so extremely thin. The borders, the aluminum, everything is so well built that it's actually a very lightweight laptop, even with a 15-inch. Having a 15-inch MacBook also provides way better multitasking. I mean, if you want to multitask or have a side-by-side view, you can have two very big screen apps on your laptop, which makes it extremely useful for productivity. You've also got a pretty decent webcam and microphone. You've got a 1080p webcam camera, which actually looks pretty good. I am very well lit, but either way, it's a very good, way better webcam than other laptops. It looks great. And you've also got a 3 microphone array, which also sounds pretty good. I mean, you tell me, how do I sound and how do I look? The keyboard is your typical perfect Magic Keyboard on the Mac. It's quiet, it's clicky, it's comfortable. You've got a whole function row, including Touch ID to unlock your Mac or pay with Apple Pay. You've got a liquid retina display that looks absolutely stunning. The whites are extremely bright, the blacks are dark, and the colors are extremely vivid. Something to note is that the brightness is way brighter on the MacBook Pro compared to the Air. But definitely the best thing, and the thing that always surprises me about using a MacBook Air, is the battery life. Because the user that buys a MacBook Air is not a video editor, is not a pro photographer, even though obviously the M3 chip can pretty much run most projects as the MacBook Pro since it's got the M3 chip. But the typical student or the typical user that does tons of emails, tons of web browsing, while does tons of FaceTimes, while listens to music, that type of user will definitely benefit this MacBook Air so much. You've got up to 18 hours of video playback, and it just blows my mind how I can open up my MacBook Air in Friday morning and I cannot make the battery die until Sunday night without obviously doing video editing. If you don't push this MacBook to its limits, to its processor, the battery life is insane and will literally last you days. that's the magic of the MacBook period, and that's the magic of the MacBook Air itself. Such a thin, such a portable design that it's something that the MacBook Pro will not give you. There's something about its design, about its thinness, about its lightness, that you just kind of want to take it everywhere. You want to shove it in your backpack. And the M3 chip truly takes advantage to optimize the battery to its limits. So the answer that you've been waiting for, should you buy a MacBook Air or a MacBook Pro? So if you're a video editor or you're someone that takes the full potential of the processor of a laptop, you probably know your answer. Get a MacBook Pro, not because the MacBook Air can't handle it, but the MacBook Pro will just handle it with ease, and you can crank the processor of the MacBook Pro to infinity and beyond. For anybody else, the M3 MacBook Air is such a powerful, lightweight, beautiful, and not as many fingerprints as the last year's model MacBook fingerprint color anodization feature. I mean, it doesn't get as many fingerprints, and look how thin this is. I mean, come on, it is so incredibly thin. See? If you see, there's probably a little bit of fingerprints, but it's not a fingerprint anymore. Okay, I hope I answered all of your questions. If I didn't, you can drop them down below in the comments. You can subscribe right here. You can watch my last year's M2 MacBook Air review, or you can watch a day in the life of me using a MacBook Air. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.